Welcome to BOMA's Building Excellence, a CRE podcast series. This episode is brought to you by Yardi. I'm your host, Alan Stein. Today we're joined by Brian Sutherland, the Vice President of Commercial for Yardi. Brian, it's great to have you here to help us better understand the massive wave of AI hitting the industry.
Yeah, glad to be a part of the conversation.
Before we dig into the deep tech, let's start with a quick game of rapid fire to get to know you a little better. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right. Favorite way to unplug from technology on the weekend?
Golfing.
Love it. Love it. Bucket list trip?
Tokyo, Japan.
Okay. Go to karaoke song?
Garth Brooks, Rodeo.
Favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
And if you could only keep one app on your phone, other than email and work, of course, what would it be?
Claude.
All right, that's a great segue into our conversation today. So for me, it would definitely be Apple Music because, as Elvis Presley famously said, without music, the day would never end. Now that you've given us a quick glimpse into who you are, let's talk about your work with Yardi. For those of you that might not know, can you give us a little bit of an elevator pitch on who Yardi is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yardi was founded in 1984 in Santa Barbara, California. Our owner is Anit Yardi. He still remains active and involved with the company as a chairman. At its core, Yardi is property management and accounting, and that's really where our roots are, and that's the foundation of our platform. So think general ledger, AP, AR, financial reporting, customer management, etc. Increasingly, we've moved into everything really around real estate operations, from marketing to construction to budgeting to leasing, and really invited other folks into the Yardi platform. From a market share perspective, about 50% of real estate in the U.S. Runs on the Yardi platform. So, many times we're referred to as a 500-pound gorilla in terms of real estate software. But it's a fantastic company, very family-friendly, and just a fantastic place to work.
That's great. So tell us, you've been in the industry for quite a while. Walk us through your journey within the industry a little bit, and also your time with Yardi and your role with Yardi.
Yeah, so prior to Yardi, had several different startups. Yardi was actually one of my clients. We were doing employment screening and had an employment screening business that I had sold eventually, but prior to that, Yardi was my client. So I was familiar with Yardi and familiar with Yardi's growth from a headcount perspective, certainly. And being from Santa Barbara at that point, small town, and everyone kind of knows the larger employers in town. My experience at Yardi is varied. So I really started on the residential side, moved to commercial pretty quickly, and launched Yardi Elevate. So it was really on the product side, working deeply with our clients on their workflows. And that product line is quite successful now. My day-to-day is overseeing the sales organization on the commercial real estate side. So that's office, industrial, retail, co-working, corporate real estate, self-storage. So kind of a lot under my purview from a sales perspective. I help out with the strategic direction of the product line, and then more recently have been tasked to bring Virtuoso, our AI brand, to market. So have been really focused on artificial intelligence, and that seems to be the topic everywhere I tend to go. So look forward to talking a little bit about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got a couple things on your plate, it sounds like it, for sure. So
I do.
Yardi has really leveraged AI for things like invoice processing for years. But something shifted about 24 months ago with the rise of large language models. How has that conversation for your customers changed since that shift?
Yeah, I think the power of artificial intelligence was recognized. And if you look at pre-LLM, it was really around natural language processing, machine learning, chatbots that had natural language processing in it. And large language models really changed the landscape because the end users were really seeing the benefit of it. And whether it was doing, a simple task at work or a question that your kids might ask of you, whatever it might be, but having the ability to go through one of these AI interfaces and really interact with it and see the power of it, I think just brought a lot of excitement certainly to our customers, but I think just more broadly out there. And it's been an exciting time, and a lot certainly has changed even since those came out, with ChatGPT really coming out first and the other ones after that, but a lot of excitement around large language models and AI in general.
Yeah. Well, that explains a lot about the genesis of our conversation today and on how we got here. So now let's start talking about the fact that we are here. So it's all been a huge evolution in AI in every industry, but commercial real estate is no exception to that. And we've really moved past the hype phase into a phase where including AI in your service offerings is now table stakes. So, what are we seeing, or what are you seeing more specifically from the C-suite as it relates to incorporating AI into your service offerings?
Yeah, I think you're spot on in terms of AI being table stakes. I think the C-suite is asking a lot of questions, and typically those questions will fall on the IT group. And the questions are around how AI is going to have an impact on their business and where they see AI kind of transforming the way they do their day-to-day. And so I think that's a good thing because the benefit and vision is certainly there. And the IT groups are being tasked with how to deliver now. And they have a perceived interest, or actual interest from the C-suite. And with that comes budgets. With that comes, I think, a lot of excitement and opportunity. And so I view that as a really good thing that everyone wants to see the power of AI across their organization.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned IT groups. Are you seeing any different things from a finance standpoint or any other personas related to the commercial real estate space into how they're leveraging their software partners to help navigate these new waters?
Yeah, I think the demands are coming from multiple different groups. Certainly from the finance side, really looking at cost savings, right? And where artificial intelligence is going to help their bottom line. From an IT perspective, certainly that's part of the conversation, but I think the conversation is also around security and governance. And the user conferences or industry events that have technology folks at it, I can tell you every single topic is around artificial intelligence. And so they are living and breathing it, whether they wanted to or not. And they're being asked a lot of questions. I think finance groups are too. And I'd say by and large, those are the two largest groups that we talk to. Certainly there's other influencers within the organization. There's executives as well who love to get updates in terms of artificial intelligence, the impact on the industry, what we're hearing from our customers. We have a pretty good view just given that 50% of real estate runs on our platform. And I think many folks are looking to their software providers to answer questions and to make sure they have a good foundation and understanding of the implications of AI.
I love that you mention security. Obviously when it comes to new tech, the biggest worries are usually around safety and security and who actually controls the data. How has Yardi updated its systems to make sure a company's private information stays protected and doesn't end up where it shouldn't be?
Yeah, so I can tell you our lawyers have certainly been busy looking at regulations that are coming out country by country. We have a pretty broad range, 80 different countries our platform is run on. And so each jurisdiction and country might have their own kind of standards. I will say though, to your question in terms of what has changed or evolved maybe at Yardi from that standpoint, we're still safeguarding our clients' data the same way we have for the last 40 plus years. And you think about the clients that might be on our platform, it's banking institutions, sovereign wealth, large REITs that might be on it. And so we're SOX 1, SOX 2 compliant. Artificial intelligence is part of that. And so the same sort of standards you have operating our platform from a day-to-day perspective pertains to everything we're doing from an AI perspective as well.
Okay. You've introduced the concept of model context protocol connectors. How does this allow a property management company to use tools like Copilot or Claude with their own data?
Yeah, to me, this was kind of the holy grail of connecting to your data. I think there's been a movement across real estate companies to get their data and have access to their data. So those projects have been underway. What I don't think anyone saw coming was artificial intelligence, and now the power of having your data kind of in a single platform or accessible is really mission critical. In terms of MCP, what we're finding is more and more people are logging in through AI interfaces on a daily basis, whether it is Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot. Those are kind of the big four AI interfaces. Our goal is to give our clients accessibility to the data that they're sitting on and allow them to connect through the same AI interfaces that they're logging into every day. The nice thing is it's not just our data. There are connectors and NCP layers for other tools like Outlook or different things that they might be using on a daily basis. And so this idea of commingling data, wrapping around that large language model, having your data also governed and secure and authenticated from an end user perspective is quite powerful. And I can tell you the outputs that our clients are seeing are meaningful, and they're able to get details around their real estate operations. And if they're looking at leasing and want to look at how renewing a lease or extending a certain tenant is going to have an impact on their NOI, they can do that on the fly through an AI interface, not having to go into our platform. And so it is resonating, and I think people want their data where they work. And so we're trying to make that part of our roadmap as well.
Yeah, that's great. It reminds me of something that I always preach around the 3 Ds, which is data-driven decisions. So let the data tell you what your decision should be and what direction you should be taking something. So it's awesome to hear that you guys have really embraced and are starting to figure out how to better arm the property management world with that data.
Yardi is the single connected platform that gives commercial real estate owners, managers, and investors real-time visibility across their entire portfolio, from leasing and accounting to tenant experience and asset performance. We've spent over 40 years building software exclusively for this industry, and today some of the world's largest CRE firms run on Yardi. Connect with us online or in person at the upcoming BOMA International Expo in Long Beach, California, and let us show you what this looks like for your property portfolio. The 2026 BOMA International Conference and Expo is where teams get stronger and problems get solved. Experience the power of connection, learning, and innovation, plus the best expo in the industry. Learn more at 2026.bomaconvention.org. We look forward to seeing you this June in Long Beach, California.
Okay, now let's transition into agents in the future of workflow. So how do you see the future of AI playing out and helping property managers with daily tasks? You touched on that a little bit, but maybe a little more specific.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at real estate companies, I think one kind of use case is residential fee managers and large residential fee managers. And if you look at the way their organizations are laid out, there's certainly segregations of duties, and they'll have people that are, on site and interacting with their customers or prospective customers one-on-one. You'll have people that are managing AP approvals and vendor relationships, or individuals that are doing AR. And so I think if you look at the organizations that way and understand where these agentic flows can create time savings or more efficiencies or cost savings in many cases, really think of it in terms of having agent coworkers next to each one of those individuals and making them more efficient. And so, horizontally across the organization, all these different users, them doing different tasks and having agents augmenting that kind of day-to-day is I think is a good way to look at it. And I think The way we're certainly looking at it as well, working with our clients, really understanding their kind of workflows and then where these agentic workflows are going to be improved by this technology that's there.
Yeah. You talk about agents at scale or agent coworkers. Can you paint for us, give us a couple examples maybe, or paint for us a little better picture of how those agents might better help with daily tasks like AP, AR, or even customer interactions?
Yeah. Just a little view into our payment processing, and this is for an example. 75 million invoices go through it on an annual basis. Each invoice, in terms of getting approved for payment, goes through about 4 workflow steps, and so that's about 300 million steps across our client base. Each one of those steps, takes about 2 minutes. So that's about 600 million minutes, which equates to about 10 million hours that our clients spend approving invoices. So quite a bit of time. So if you can automate that process, if you can have logic that goes through the system and sees what invoices have been approved and sets up rules over the say based upon the last 12 months of processing, it is a huge benefit to our clients from a time savings perspective, not to have a human going in there and approving these invoices that might be lower dollar amounts, and gaining trust over time that this AI model is working, that the auditability of it is more than you can audit when a human approves the invoices. So that's like a very kind of narrow use case of where an agentic flow could really benefit our clients, because just the sheer volume of invoices that go through real estate organizations, and you approve that process, and it can have a material impact.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just hear the dollar signs ringing up there, and as far as the savings from a time and money standpoint, I mean that's incredible.
Yeah, and on those invoices, a lot of payment, vendors have payment terms as well. And if you look at the vendors that are servicing these real estate properties, a lot of them have cash flow issues, and they're looking for early payment. So these invoices will indicate if there's there could be a discount based upon early payment. And if you're able to process those invoices, figure out which vendors have payment terms at scale, roll that out across all of your vendors, that's a serious cost savings that you can have in terms of your vendor MRO spend. And so that's just another little example. So kind of taking that invoice and what's something else that we can potentially do with it with an agent. And so just a lot of opportunity across real estate operations.
Yeah. So I say this quite often, that a property manager wears so many hats, and they have to rely so heavily on their vendor partners to be the experts in these areas. So for the property manager on the ground, how does an AI forward software really translate maybe to some cost or time savings, specifically in the operational side of what they are responsible for doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There is a ton of responsibilities, and a lot has to come with the interactions that they're having with prospective residents at a property, for example, or demand from existing tenants that are there. And so if we can think about, again, those roles and kind of the work streams that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And so I think a good example of that is prospects coming into a property and interacting with a chat agent as opposed to a live agent, and doing things like setting up a tour and automating that process and giving that prospective resident the ability to schedule a tour, give them a code to actually get in the door. Those sort of things are really taking the burden from that property manager and allowing them to focus on the customers that they have already at the property, and really automating the prospect workflow instead. And so that would just be like another example. But across any specific individual, I think within these real estate companies that we serve, there are benefits of rolling out AI. There are material impacts of it from a risk perspective, time savings perspective, cost perspective. And those kind of 3 areas are the 3 pillars that we kind of focus in on when we're thinking about our next kind of initiative around artificial intelligence.
Oh, that's great. Only a tip of the iceberg as it relates to, I think, the power that we're going to be seeing as from AI in the commercial real estate space. So a couple more questions as we look to wrap up our conversation around AI and what leaders in the industry should be thinking as far as next steps. So you're very involved in the AI sections of CRE. What would you say is the biggest misconception that leaders currently have about AI's impact on their business?
Yeah, I think there is a misconception or, a look at AI where it's a reduction of headcount is a potential option. And I think we like to view it as it's a opportunity for expansion of current roles. And the way we're looking at it internally, if our Yardi employees, for example, have more capacity, we can increase the live support that we have with our clients, so improving our customer service. And I think with real estate operations, it's very similar. And I mentioned the example earlier of the property manager and that prospect kind of workload and interaction coming through. That gives them more capacity. Now they can focus on improving customer service, retaining their residents, et cetera. And so I think it opens up a lot more opportunities within your organizations, these real estate companies, organizations, and the folks that are interacting with their customers, with the finance group, whatever it might be.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So looking at the broader landscape of property technology integration, what should companies be doing right now to prepare for their data for an AI-driven 2026?
Yeah, well, I think data can live in silos, and data can be unstructured. And so there are those foundational views of data that I think need to be addressed for impactful AI. I would also say to not look at it having to do everything for you out of the gate. And I think there needs to be trust that's built out around artificial intelligence. I think there needs to be wins out of the gate. Many AI projects fail as well. So start narrow, start with something very specific, start with hopefully a win, and then iterate and build upon that. And that's going to keep the C-suite wanting to continue to invest in artificial intelligence. It's going to keep the IT groups wanting, giving them the ability to continue to innovate and see where AI can have an impact. But don't try to solve everything all at once. Let's take it in stride and get some wins for your organization.
Great. In closing, if there's one thing you want listeners to take away about the future of AI and machine learning in CRE, what would it be?
That it is ever changing, and the speed at which advancements are coming are almost make it very challenging to stay on top of it. And I think have trusted partners, have trusted consultants, and really, lean on the larger organizations that are out in the front lines, dealing with rolling out artificial intelligence at scale. I can tell you as an organization, we're leaning on Microsoft in many ways and things that they're rolling out. And I think many of our clients are leaning on us or other software vendors. And I think, I would just really encourage that just because the speed at which stuff's coming out, it's really tough for any one individual to stay on top of it. It really takes a large group.
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your insights on this very relevant topic. I've really enjoyed our conversation. If anyone wants to learn more about how Yardi is embracing AI, what's the best way that you would recommend them connecting with you or someone from your team?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yardi.com is always a great place to start. There's a lot of information on artificial intelligence and white papers on there as well. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I keep a clean inbox and try to respond to all emails that come through on a daily basis. It's part of my mission. It's really tough to do at times with the volume of emails that I receive, but that's brian.sutherland@yardi.com, and happy to help direct you and hopefully get you to the right person within the Yardi organization, knowing that it's sometimes tough to start on Yardi.com to get there.
Do you mind if I reach out to you on how to better keep a clean inbox?
Hey, anytime. It's not an easy one. I gotta tell you.
Yeah. A big thank you to our sponsor for the month, Yardi. And thank you everyone for listening to BOMA's Building Excellence, a CRE podcast series, where the conversation doesn't stop and the industry keeps moving forward. Until next time, this is Alan Stein, signing off.